Okay, so now we want to go ahead and make this quiz function. We just have the UI for it now. So for the quiz, for the questions and all that, it's going to go into an array, and I'm just going to paste this in because I don't want to just type all this out. And basically we have just a variable called quiz data. It's an array of objects that has a question, and it has an A, B, C, D answer, and then it also has a correct. So the correct is obviously going to be whichever one of these is correct. And we just have some simple questions here. Which language runs in a web browser? What does CSS, HTML stand for? What year is JavaScript launched? Obviously you can change this, but we're going to go ahead and go with these questions. Now let's bring in everything we need. First of all, we need the quiz itself, which wraps around everything. So let's do document.getElementById, and we're going to get the ID of quiz. Now for the answers, let's say const, and we'll call this answer L's, so answer elements, and we want to use document.querySelectorAll because there's more than one. Remember, each of these has a class of answer, so that's what we want to get here. So let's say class of answer, and then we want the question element, so let's say const question element, and that's going to be document.getElementById, and the h2, the question, has an ID of question. Now we want all the answer IDs, so basically, you know, a text through d text. So let's say const a underscore text, and set that to document.getElementById, and that's going to be a underscore text, and then I'm going to copy this down 3 more times. So this one, let's change that to B. This one and this one will change to C. This one and this one will change to D. Okay, and then finally we just need the submit button, so let's say const submit btn, and let's set that to document.getElementById, and we're going to get the ID of submit. Okay, so that's everything we need for now. We need an index of basically the question or the current quiz. I guess each one of these pages and each one of these is going to be a quiz. So let's say const, and we want the current quiz, which is going to always start at 0, right? Because it's an array, it's going to it starts at a 0 index. And actually, we're going to set this. This is going to change and be reassigned, so we want to use let here. And then let's also create a variable for the score, which obviously starts at 0. And then we're going to call load quiz, which is a function that we're going to create right now. So load quiz, we want to get the current quiz data. So let's say const current quiz data, and we'll set that to quiz data, which is the array that we have above, and then the index for this is going to be the current quiz value, so this right here, which is initially set to 0. All right, then we want to get the question element, so question L, actually that should be a lowercase l. Okay, so question element inner text, and we're going to set that to whatever the current quiz data question is, because current quiz data is one of the objects in the array, and we have a question value, so that's what we're getting here, and we're going to put it into that inner text. So if I save, we're going to see the first one here, which language runs in a web browser. If I change the current quiz to 2, we're going to see the second question. All right, I'm sorry, that would be the third. 1 would be the second question. Okay, now for the answers, remember we have a underscore text, and we're going to set the inner text, and let's set that to current quiz data dot a, because if we look in, if we look up here, each one of these has an A value. That's what we're getting here, and putting it into the A underscore text ID. We want to do the same for the other 3. So that'll be B and this will be B text. C text will be current quiz data.c, and then this one will be D. Now, one issue we're going to have when we add our event listener on the submit and we load the next quiz or the next question answer set, we're going to have something selected, and we want to deselect everything beforehand. So right when we load the quiz here, let's call deselect answers, and then we'll create that function down here. So deselect answers, and this is pretty simple. We already have our answers elements, which is a node list because we use query selector all, and we just want to loop through. So for each, and we'll say for each answer element, then let's set that particular answer element. We want to set the checked value equal to false, which will remove any checks or any selections. All right, now let's add an event listener. So we have our submit button. We want to add an event listener, so we want to listen for a click event, and when it's clicked, we're going to call a function, and we need to get the answer. So let's say const answer, and we'll set that to a function called get selected, and we'll put that function right up here, get selected, and I'm going to initialize answer. So I'm just going to initialize this variable and then take the answer elements and loop through. So for each answer element, then I want to check to see which one is checked. So we'll do an if statement here and just say if that particular answer element dot checked, which gives us a true or false, then let's set answer equal to the answer element dot ID. Okay, we're going to set it to whatever the ID is, and then after this for each here, we're just going to return the answer. All right, so that will get us the answer. In fact, let's test that out if we do a console log of answer. And then I'm going to go over here, open up my console. I'm going to choose C, which is obviously wrong, but you can see that it logs B. Python is C, Java is A, JavaScript is D. So we're getting not the correct answer, but we're getting the answer that's selected. So now we want to match that with the correct answer. So let's get rid of that. And we'll say if there's an answer. So if answer, then we want to check to see if the answer is equal to the correct answer, which remember is in the array. So we can use quiz data, and we want whatever the current quiz is. So we pass in that current quiz index, which starts at 0, and we want to check the correct value. So if the answer that we select is equal to that, then we know that that's correct. So we want to take the score and just increment it by 1. So just score plus plus. Okay, then we want to go on to the next quiz. So I'm basically saying each of these screens is a quiz. So we'll take the current quiz and we'll just increment it to move on to the next. Now let's check to see if the current quiz is less than the length of the array. So if it's less than the quiz data dot length, that means we're not at the end. So we want to once again call load quiz. Else, so that means that we're at the end, we answered the last question. Then I'm going to take the quiz element, which is just the entire wrapper, and I'm going to set the inner HTML, and let's set that to some backticks. And in here we'll put an H2 and just say you answered correctly at, and then we're going to put the score. So in here, so score slash, and then whatever the length of the quiz is. So we can get that with the array, which is quiz data, and then the length. So it'll be like 3 out of 4 or whatever. And then just put questions and end our H2. Okay, and then let's have a reload button. So right under the H2, we'll have a button, and we'll just do an inline on click here and set that to location.reload, which will just reload the page and it will start over. And we'll say reload. Oops. All right. So let's save it. Let's try it out. I'm just going to reload this, and let's go ahead and select JavaScript. So what does CSS stand for? I'm going to choose the wrong answer on purpose here. HTML stand for, I'll choose the right answer. JavaScript, I'll choose the right answer and submit. And you can see I answered correctly at 3 out of 4 questions. Let's rephrase that. You answered 3 out of 4 questions correctly. Okay, and just to show you that the reload button works, I'm just going to choose a bunch of wrong answers here. And if I click reload, it starts the quiz over. All right, so very simple little application. Obviously, you could add much more to this. And if you wanted to add more questions, all you would do is add to this array. Okay, and you could have these questions coming from some kind of database, coming from some kind of API. But that's it. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one.